Amy Tan started writing fiction as an alternative to psychotherapy. Her bestsellers, Joy Luck Club and The Kitchen God's Wife, have been the happy side effects of this hobby. Her work bridges old worlds and new, mothers and daughters, China and America. We're happy to have her with us tonight. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Nice to be here. San Francisco home?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been there for a long time.
A lot of people thought that the first bestseller, The Joy Luck Club, which I have here, was really your mother's life story. And it was some surprise to have learned that The Kitchen God's Wife is really Daisy Tan's story.
Yes. Well, there were so many people who came up to her friends who said, which one of the mothers is you? And there are 4 mothers in there. And she also wanted to give me credit for having some imagination. She said, no, my daughter just has this wild imagination. And when I was having problems writing the second book, I started probably 7 or 8 times and threw away all those first drafts.
Why?
I think that I was trying to write to people's expectations. I was trying to figure out what was it in the Joy Luck Club that they liked. Was it, mothers and daughters? Was it exotic? And I wanted also to do something different. So I resisted the idea of another mother-daughter story. But my mother came to me, as mothers are wont to do, to give their daughters advice. And she said she figured she could help me write this next book. After all, she helped collaborate on the first book.
Yeah.
And she said, next book, just tell my true story. Easy as that. And I tried to explain to her that's not really how fiction works. But I eventually was very drawn to it because there were a number of things I wanted to know that she hadn't told me in full. And this was an opportunity for us to give a gift to each other.
What was the gift that she gave to you?
Telling me
the truth.
The truth. The
Things
story
you didn't know.
That pained her very much, that was a secret. And saying that I had permission to write about this, to share it with other people.
And the gift you gave her
was listening and giving this story back to her in a way that let her understood that I had sympathized completely with what she had gone through.
Yeah. Why is it mothers and daughters in many cases have difficulty communicating?
Well, I think it starts off with such an intense relationship when you're very young. I mean, my mother used to tell me things that I believed completely. For example, that lightning had eyes, or warnings that you shouldn't do something or this would happen. And it was always true. And I believed her version of the world until I reached a certain age, school age. And by then I wanted to just say, I can have my own thoughts about the world and I don't need this person. I can be my own person, so to speak. I think that then that bond that you have from an early age gets stretched, or you try to stretch it as the daughter, until it's almost too late to repair it. But that too late point, or almost too late point, comes when you're a little older, more mature, you're no longer rebelling. You really want to make that connection before it's too late.
I know this is hard for you, but tell me what you think your, and I'm looking, gift is. What is it that you have that enables what you say and the story you tell to resonate with so many people?
I think in part, it's nothing unusual. It's the fact that I'm a baby boomer. I'm an American born in this country, and I'm a baby boomer, and I have feelings that a lot of women my age have. And one of that is this fear of what would I lose if I lost my mother? What do I lose by not knowing about the past? I think Americans in general have a greater interest in the past, not just about their mothers, but about their histories. The personal histories that brought
Because in a busy world, we want to be connected to where we came from. Is it that simple?
I don't think these things are ever simple. I mean, it's so many different things. It's in
but
part
everybody
that
wants to know, don't they?
They want to know.
That's the reason that children who are adopted in a very happy family want to find their birth parent.
Yes. Well, there's questions about what your past has given you in terms of genetics, certainly, but I think it goes beyond that, because when I think about my past, it's not so much genetics as the kind of pain and lessons that were learned and passed from generation to generation.
Has she communicated to you what this means to her?
The books?
Yes.
Writing the books?
And her story in your pages?
You know, in a way, she hasn't said so directly in saying, this means this to me, but I know what it means to her in several ways that she's talked to me. One is that shortly after this book was published, she started to explain a story to me about something that happened to her, a woman who treated her in a way that wasn't very nice. And she was going on. And all of a sudden she stopped herself. She said, you know, I don't have to tell you anymore because you understand, you think like me. And
that moment meant what to you?
That moment meant that she knew I understood her because there was a large part of me that had come from her. And she was always hoping I would acknowledge that, and she got that acknowledgement in the book.
Are you surprised that you're a writer?
I am surprised because, in part, when I was growing up and I took these SAT tests, these achievement tests, I was told that English was my worst subject and that math was the area that I would excel in, that I should essentially go into the sciences or engineering. So I sort of gave up on that idea, even though I loved to write. I loved anything that was creative, whether it was art or writing. So it does surprise me that now I'm a writer. On the other hand, it doesn't surprise me when I look back in retrospect and I think about the wonderful stories that my father told to me as a minister. When he told a sermon, it was very much like a story. And the very contrasting stories my mother told me in the way of warnings. Don't do that. And there was always a faceless, nameless man who would come out and break my heart. And I never knew what she was talking about, but it fed my imagination about what she could possibly be talking about.
What's the contribution that Asian Americans are making to the United States now? What do we learn from you?
Well, I almost feel there's a misperception that, we have this thing called the model minority, that Asians somehow are held up as the standard,
because the families tight and support each other and they're economically successful, and all of that somehow makes you look to them and say, what's their secret?
Right, and the circumstances are different for each group, and so it's hard to make those comparisons. It's unfair to make those comparisons. But at the same time, I think as with any group that comes into this country, there's an enrichment about what this country means to different people. I think it reminds people of what is truly the values that we should treasure and try to preserve or make better.
And those values are?
The freedoms that we have. When you look at other countries, or the country my mother came from, China, the old China, that ability to have a choice, the rights to privacy, the fact that you can write things and you hopefully will not be censored by people or government institutions. There's a sense of loyalty that we have, and that I think that also, for example, Chinese people bring into this culture and expand upon, a loyalty that extends beyond family, that serves community. And I think that part of what should be, is at times wonderful about our communities here is that we help one another.
It's a pleasure to have you. You and I did this once before when I was at Night Watch, and you were, I think, in San Francisco, and we did it by satellite. So nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you in person.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Amy Tan, her new book is The Kitchen God's Wife. I thank you. When we come back, the communitarian movement, what's in it for us? Back in a moment.